Hello and welcome back, and today I want to talk about the brand new Synology DS920. A day or two ago I posted a video in the evening, or evening Greenwich Mean Time, to talk about some of the new leaked information on 4 new Synology NASs, and I promised to follow up with a far more detailed information video for each of the 4 releases, when I wasn't quite so fuzzed out and with 2 cats trying to destroy the background behind me. So here we are in the first of 4. Today I want to talk about the DS920 Plus, largely because this is probably one of the 4 NASs that had the largest expectation base behind it. And I think arguably it could be said that the Synology 920 Plus is the one that's left probably the most mixed reviews of the 4, because it had so much expectations as a follow-up to the 918. Now, what you're getting from what we can see in these spec sheets of the DS920 isn't half bad. It's actually pretty good in terms of the hardware inside. But it's what a lot of us thought that it was going to be that might be the issue. Now, I still maintain that I think the DS920 Plus, as we know it right now, isn't quite its final form. And I do think 2.5 GBE is something that Synology, if not are considering, then something that they are actively pursuing in their Diskstation series. Not that 6-bay we talked about, but another one. Still, nevertheless, if the information we know so far about the 920 is indeed correct in the way it will stay till release, then this currently is a 4-bay NAS featuring 1 GBE as standard. Well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Let's talk about the 920 in the traditional sense of the specifications. First and foremost, let's talk about the CPU. Now, the CPU being featured inside these devices is a Gemini Lake. It is the J4125, one of the newest generation Gemini Lake processors out there. This Intel-based processor is a quad-core chip, with each core being 2.0 GHz in clock speed that can be turboed up to 2.7 per core. That is an impressive number, and a CPU benchmark rated at around 3035, which is probably the most powerful CPU we've seen featured in a Diskstation NAS outside of maybe an i3 or a Pentium back in several generations ago. And these were big beast ones, those ones. This is a standard 4-bay Diskstation. Now, that CPU allows a number of things. A lot of it to do with the fact that it's got integrated HD 600 graphics, which means support of things like 4K and 1080p at quite a substantial level, and virtualization and surveillance too. Let's not overlook those. But the Synology 918 before it was a very, very popular NAS, and still is, dare I say it, popular NAS for Plex media server users, because even though it couldn't tackle 4K in a real hardcore sense within Plex, it could still handle a lot of 1080p tasks very well, and natively handle 1080p and 4K well too. This newer NAS in the 920 arrives with support of natively of 4K and 1080p transcoding with the Synology's own Video Station app to a substantial degree, and it is a big jump in CPU from what I can see. However, if you're looking at this NAS as a Plex media server, it is going to perform better, but not leaps and bounds better. If you want that kind of performance, you should be looking at Pentiums, i3s and above. But this CPU does bring a lot to the table. It lets you encode and decode H.265 and 264 codecs, probably just decode. On top of that, with regards to that CPU, there is, of course, encryption in the form of AES-NI, kind of the standard now that everyone expects from an Intel-based processor. And this CPU does open the door to other elements of Synology's catalogue of applications. Also, on top of that, this CPU combined with the 2400 MHz memory, that's DDR4 memory, means you are getting a device that will clearly outperform the Synology 918 Plus. The 920 arrives with 4 GB by default and can be upgraded to 8 GB officially. Now, according to CPU Benchmark and CPU Monkey and Synology themselves, this CPU should not exceed 8 gig of memory. And I know on this channel and others we have kind of experimented with larger memory quantities with Synology NAS, and I'm less inclined to do so on this latest generation for a myriad of reasons, but I'll save that for another video. Now, that is the CPU and memory inside this device. It's a 4 SATA hard drive NAS, just like its predecessor. It's got USB 3 front and back, 2 ports there, 4 connecting external devices, and the few remaining supported compatible USB devices from Synology. On top of that, the device has got 2 LAN ports, again as mentioned, 1 GBE throughout. And I know a number of you are a little kind of thrown out by the fact that it's 1 GBE for 2 reasons. One, because previous iterations of the Powerhouse 4-bay from Synology, and I say Powerhouse, I mean mid-range really, have always arrived with 1 gigabit Ethernet. And because file sizes are getting bigger, our internet connections are getting faster, and ultimately our demand grows greater, more than 1 GBE on a NAS was expected in the form of the 920. And given these newer generation of NASs have arrived all at the same time, or at least leaked at the same time, we were kind of hoping for a better spread of them in terms of Ethernet connectivity. I think Synology this time around has done the best job they have ever done in releasing NASs within a family, so they're all close enough together so you don't feel like you're not getting value for money, but at the same time you can see where you live in regards to your demand versus the hardware you need. However, the 920 is dangerously close, in my opinion, to the hardware on offer from some of the others. And it was going to be 1 GBE that really would have made the distinction if this newer generation had arrived with 2.5 GBE as standard. And I still hold out hope that that will be the case. It's still early days. But if you overlook the link aggregated 1 GBE ports on the rear, you can also see an eSATA port for expandability on the 920. So this 920, much like the previous generations, a 916 and a 918, you can expand this to a total of 9 hard drive bays. I say hard drives, SATA, so SSD or hard drives, whatever you need. So you can attach that 5-bay expansion and, grow your storage as needed, just like you could in previous generations. It is a good NAS device, the 920, and I do think it still delivers quite a lot, but it's not quite as good as I think a number of you were hoping. Now, with regards to how this all translates into software, I'm pleased to say that based on the hardware that we know so far, the 920 Plus is going to run pretty much the gamut when it comes to Synology's software catalog. You name it, it'll run it. Synology Drive, Synology Moment, Synology Office, Synology Chat, Synology Surveillance Station, Synology Video Station, Synology Moments, Synology Photo Station, or Synology Photos if that happens, and other applications too. It's going to run everything, including hyper backups and active backup suite. So there's everything currently available from Synology can be done on this NAS. But what a lot of you want to know is, of course, like me, DSM7. Is this going to arrive parallel to DSM7? And sadly, we just don't know. We know DSM7 is scheduled for a release towards the end of 2020 into the kind of their Q3, Q4, which is kind of September through to December, but more likely somewhere in between. And no doubt Synology will do their own launch events around it. But the 920 would put you in a very, very good place to enjoy DSM7. It's just a question of whether DSM7 is going to arrive before or after these devices, and we simply don't know. Another thing that we don't know, but we can speculate, is of course the price. Because the 920 Plus, although it has better hardware than its predecessor, like a lot of NAS hardware, the growth of each generation, each 2-bay, each 4-bay, each 8-bay and more, always seems to keep a very similar price point with an extra 5 to 10% thrown on top, because it has to be within keeping of hardware standards at the time of its release. So chances are the DS920 Plus, because of its similar architecture to that of the 918, I reckon including VAT or tax or wherever you are living in the world, you are still looking at around the £500 price point. Maybe a little bit under, maybe a little bit over, 520 perhaps. So if that seems like it's a bit rich for your blood, you may want to check out some of the other NASs I'm going to talk about soon. Of course, we will be comparing the Synology DS920 against the likes of its predecessor, the 918, its current comparable QNAP NAS, the TS453BE, and of course how the 920 Plus is going to compare with that brand new QNAP on the horizon, the TS453D. It's going to be a much more interesting comparison than normal because these are even more similar than ever. But This has been a little bit more of an info breakdown on the Synology DS920 Plus. If you want to stay abreast of things happening in the world of NAS or want to get news first, then do of course subscribe. If you've enjoyed this video, click like. If you want to talk more about this device, do let me know in the comments, because I'm going to be kind of gauging everyone's reaction to these new devices and kind of pooling everyone's feedback for a whole feature video coming very, very soon. So do let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Visit the guides at spam.com for your NAS, the NAS experts. Visit the link in the description to NASCompares.com, where we talk about all the new releases. And of course, I will see you next time.